night, the city of Lagos went agog as all routes.
Be the first to know. From the north, south, east, west, and around Africa, we break the news.
One Nigeria.
Now you can catch all the actions live as the news breaks. We are Core TV News.
Welcome to Core TV
24-hour news station.
Thanks for joining us again on Cool Digest Thursday. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. Just while Nigerians are basking in the euphoria of a ceasefire deal between the federal government and the deadly terrorist sect Boko Haram, news reaching us is just as it's been carried by some newspapers this morning, talks about 60 women who were reportedly abducted by suspected Boko Haram sect at Wagamangoro and Gata villages, both in troubled Adamawa state, during a fresh attack. You recall yesterday we showed you what the coordinator of the National Information Center, Mike Omeri, has to say as regards this ceasefire deal. He says that the troubles being experienced in some parts of northern Nigeria is not a breach on the ceasefire deal that much talks are on, and he can certify that federal government is actually speaking with the genuine group members. We're now joined by our correspondent in Adamawa State, Martins Dixon. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on Call Digest, Martins.
Yeah, good morning, Stephen.
Yeah, Martins, can you confirm there are some newspapers reports in the early hours of this morning that 60 women were abducted by suspected members of Boko Haram at Wagamangoro and Gata villages of Adamawa State?
Yeah, there were reports of abductions actually, but these reports are coming very from eyewitness and people who said they really saw or witnessed these attacks right now. But you know, the area has been under the insurgent attack for a while now.
Okay.
And there are a lot of people have fled the area, and there's no movement per se into and out of those areas because of the fear of the insurgents. So there are just reports for now that have not been confirmed by the authorities as it is, but some eyewitnesses are saying they witnessed those attacks, and that there are some girls that have been taken away.
But can you confirm if these two towns, Wagamagoro and Gata villages, are presently under the control of the insurgents?
No, most of the attacks and these villages, the insurgents just come in, they attack, and then they go back to their base. The reports that have triggered out of that area was that the insurgents came from a route that leads into some distance to the village and then attack, and then they get back. So what happens is most of the villages at the outskirts being attacked by the insurgents, and they don't stay there. So most of the people, when these attacks happen, they run to probably the local government headquarters, which are a little safe, and then some of them find their way to other areas in Adamawa State, other local governments, and then to Yola. But I don't think it's not that they attack and then they stay in those villages as it is.
It's all right. How would you describe the operations of military personnel in the light of the ceasefire deal in Adamawa?
Oh, well, I think the ceasefire cannot be said to be effective. I personally witnessed a lot of movement of military hardware yesterday. Both the Air Force, military jets and helicopters have been flying out of Yola and hovering around Yola yesterday, right from morning till evening. We witnessed these military helicopters flying all over, and that is always the sign when you see these fighter jets taking off and then flying over, you know, they are carrying out some attacks. And then also some armor tanks and military hardware that came into town. So I think the soldiers are also engaging these soldiers. So the ceasefire seems to be just on the pages of newspapers, but in effect, I don't think there is any ceasefire that has been observed.
But what's the mood like for the people there in the light of all these latest developments?
Well, it will be difficult to say the mood, but yesterday I was talking with someone who fled from some of the villages in Michigan and came into Yola. So he too was in the way in the bush, and in a particular village he cannot really say exactly what happened because he fled for a long time before he found his way to Yola. So except you meet people who have personally escaped, you won't be able to gauge the mood. But the mood actually definitely is that of a little bit of uncertainty about what is happening. There is an issue of the ceasefire, and then the fightings are still going on, attacks are still on. There are reports of soldiers also engaging the Boko Haram. One of the reports that came yesterday, even though unconfirmed, was that the military tried to repel that attack, but the insurgents were using those girls they abducted as human shields. So the military has not been able to really take on the insurgents so as not to kill those girls since they are being used as shields. So that is the mood generally. People are uncertain about exactly what is on ground, especially when the issue of ceasefire came and then all of a sudden the fights are still going on.
It's all right.
A particular report also came was that the insurgents that attacked those villages were saying there is no ceasefire and this is all propaganda, and they are going ahead with establishing the Islamic tenets in the areas with which they captured.
Martins Dixon, thank you very much for your contribution. Please still keep us up to date with stories as they emerge from Adamawa. Okay, back to our studios here in Lagos. I'm joined by Bola Oba. If the girls were to have been released on Tuesday, I will be introducing you now as a bona fide member of the Boko Haram insurgents. Where did you get your strong pessimism from?
No, it's just simple logic. I wasn't clairvoyant. I wasn't being Jeremiah Cow. You understand what I mean? I'm a Nigerian too. I feel as any Nigerian for the girls. I still pray and wish that the girls may regain their freedom as soon as possible. But the truth be told, there are no credible signs in the horizon, no serious-minded efforts and that one can design to make one say that the girls are going to be released soon. It's good we're hearing, about this so-called ceasefire talks. I think our military hierarchy ridiculed themselves by jumping before the cameras and putting up that pantomime, this thing. But you see, that does not also take away the fact that our heroic boys are contending with this faith bastardizing, no promise keeping ideologues who are at best heretics, or indeed, from my viewpoint, people who suffer from mental health issue. The Boko Haram guys. These guys are sick. We know that governance has failed. Governance has failed us, and that has brought about such an iconoclastic this thing. But these guys are sick.
But does it not disturb you that even as we speak now, you heard our Adamawa correspondent saying that there are certain no-go area in that state, and this particular newspaper reports that Waga, Mangoro and Gata villages where suspected members of the Islamic sect, the terrorist sect Boko Haram, reportedly abducted some girls, are still presently under what they now call the Islamic Caliphate.
Sorts of Nigerian territory, and indeed Cameroonian territory and some neighboring countries are literally under the control of these rebellious elements. It is easy for people. I get to hear people sometimes praising Cameroon, praising Chad. The truth is that because governments across Africa have failed their people, there are pockets of their jurisdictions that they are not in control of. My dear brother, there are places in Lagos, this Lagos that we are in, that the rule of the jungle supersedes the rule of law. I was once driving to my natal place, Moshi. I was once driving and somebody stopped. There was traffic congestion and I was told that boys were literally hacking themselves to pieces. I once heard, not too long ago, less than 2 years ago in Moshi, I once heard of an incident when wheelbarrow was used to cut away pieces of human being that was literally hacked to pieces, chopped to pieces, butchered to pieces. We need, we really need to up our games. So I'm not surprised that parts of Adamawa, parts of Yobe, parts of Borno are under the control of these guys.
But even if we find it hard to believe what Mike Omeri said yesterday, that indeed there is an ongoing negotiation between the federal government.
No, it shouldn't be hard for anybody to believe that. It is in the nature. I was in England when the government of the United Kingdom was for years negotiating with the IRA, and I know, and I don't want to sit here because I want to be popular with your viewers and be saying things that I know to be true, as though they are not true. I was a bona fide resident of the United Kingdom when the UK government was in year-long negotiations with the IRA. And at some point when they would have thought they had it, they had it sealed, it would also happen like it happened recently in Nigeria. The only reason why I'm lambasting the Nigerian military chieftains and say Omeri is that you should learn. We have rich enough antecedents to study the world over. When you are dealing with characters who find fulfillment, who find their sense of self-worth in stoking anarchy, you don't just reach agreement with them and you quickly run before a camera. No, you mess yourself up. Look at the disrepute that the Chief of Defense Staff has brought the armed services for that. You make it interpreto because of our friend, and the announcement. Somebody ought to have told them that in the nature of this kind of warfare, and indeed in all warfare, all wars are based on deception. And a general must be very, very slow to talk. I'm not the one who coined this phrase, these passages. These are eminent passages in the book by Sun Tzu, The Art of War. And if you are a general anywhere in the world and you have not read The Art of War, indeed I recommend it to entrepreneurs like me. You must read it. So if you are a general and you have not read The Art of War or some other major rich materials on warfare, so if they've taken themselves their time how to have studied materials like that, they should know that you would keep on negotiating, clandestinely with these guys. You would ostensibly be fighting them. When they see that you are choking them militarily, that clandestine negotiation facility will be a good facility for them to capitulate. That is what you use. That is what you use negotiation for with elements like this. You must not be seen to be wary to militarily pummel them. But you see, when you have an enemy cornered, you must allow a passage for the enemy to retreat or escape. That is what you use negotiation for. Clandestine, and I need to secret. Don't let me be using big grammar. You understand? What you use secret negotiation for in instances like this is that when you have given it to them well enough militarily and they know that their defeat is inevitable, they will quickly hug that facility of negotiation to capitulate.
It's all right. It's important that you step down to your level of expression so that your people in motion can understand what you're saying this morning. But I was looking with
I know you always get me to work my
I was working with a retired governor yesterday, and we were actually talking about why now, at a time where for the first time in a long time it seems as if the federal government and the Nigerian army seem to be winning the war, and then we have a National Assembly that has just certified borrowing $1 billion for ammunition and all of that. One would think that even at this point, the Nigerian army seem to have the upper hand. Why is it that we are the one talking about a truce? No one is hearing it from the usual source of the Boko Haram.
They were deceived. And it is in, how does one put it? I don't want us, you see, I want to be very careful not to be perceived to be deliberately rubbishing the image of these gentlemen who represent us. And I am one, and I've said it severally here, that I believe that the men and officers of our armed services are a better match for Boko Haram. I have also said severally here that we are in this quagmire because military leadership and indeed political leadership are failing our boys. But ordinarily, our boys are good enough. And I'm saying this not because I want to wave the patriotic banner. The antecedents of this Nigerian army, from the time I've been reading international magazine, and the reputation this army has worldwide. That is why in most United Nations peacekeeping undertakings, they prefer to have Nigeria on board. General Agui, or this remarkable general, 2 Nigerian generals earned much respect, serving as UN commanders. This army is not a ragtag army. It is the failure of political leadership. And I don't want to stigmatize the person of President Jonathan Goodluck. Jonathan has been the originator of this. It's been succession of failure of political leadership. And you see, at the point, let's be very honest with ourselves. If we were to swap places with those who are also in military leadership, I probably wouldn't have done better than them. Because I saw boys that were in university together, they weren't doing well. I went into the armed services, went for courses all over the world, came back to Nigeria, saw my colleagues. I know a retired Nigerian army general. My wife was telling me about him not too long ago. The man could not even maintain his one house. The roof was leaking. A retired general. So if you see your ex-colleague in that circumstance, you too, what is left? Everybody to him or herself, God for us all. So, but the truth be told, these guys, they have been to the best of military colleges in the world. They have performed both academically in terms of military strategy and whatever. They have performed well enough. And some of them have seen actions in far-flung places well enough to deserve their rank. But when you are in an environment where anomy, how does one say anomy now? You say make Peking go school, he go school. You say when you finish school, he go walk tall in suit like you, looking fine like you. He go school, he finish school, he no get job. Suit, he no fit buy, he no fit work on. That is definitely, that is the best of
Very quickly take it up on this. It's quite sensitive, but we must talk about it. There's this conspiracy theory as regards the relationship that exists between the general elections in 2015 and the pressure to get the girls released before that time.
Oh, it is not so much something to be looked at as a conspiracy. It is the cycle of democratic rule that governments always try their best possible before the elections to be seen to have accomplished. Look, let me be very honest with you. If Obama had not gotten Osama prior to his re-election, he probably wouldn't have been re-elected because the American economy was tanking then. You will remember, my brother, I know you are a man of the news. The American economy was tanking, and when you are facing your electorate, the chief criterion with which you can boast and tell them to re-elect you will be you should be better now than you were 4 years ago.
Okay.
If you don't have that, to hand, you better look for something else that must be soothing enough to them and convincing enough to them that you are worthy of the leadership position they have honored you with, so that they can revalidate it. So it is not a conspiracy theory. It is just a fact that when a government is about, or when an administration, or when a politician, especially in an executive capacity, is about facing the election, he or she tries to make sure that some things that have been stalling get to be moved so that they could use it.
But if that theory is relevant and justified, one would now ask the question that, do our politicians need election to be motivated to do what is right, especially in such a very sensitive issue as over 200 abducted Nigerian girls?
No, you see, this presidency missed on the issue of these girls. Unfortunately, the presidency dropped ball so many times. And you see, I am one who believes that if the APC were to swap places with them, they may not have done any better. It is in the nature of our politics for politicians, especially in the executive arm of government, to be arrogant. It is in the nature of our politics for politicians to be self-conceited, arrogant, self-conceited. Initially, the presidency didn't even believe that these girls were kidnapped. They did not. Subsequently, they wanted to do everything to make it a partisan political issue, accusing the opposition for it. At a point, to be honest with you, they set up a committee. It was not until that committee submitted its report to the president that these girls were truly kidnapped that the presidency started talking about getting the girls released. We have subsequently gotten to know that some clandestine machinery were set in place for the release of the girls. The Australian guy who claimed that he was in the employ, quote unquote, in the employ of the Nigerian government, although they also denied it, but we know that governments do things like this. Government sometimes can be two-faced in matters like this, but there is nothing that the PDP presidency is doing now that the APC presidency may not have done if they were to swap places with them.
It's all right, but beyond all of that, the name now on the news is one Amadu, who calls himself the Secretary General.
Spokesperson.
But in most cases, the term Secretary General have been used. How does that strike you for a sect that is known for Western education, is prohibited.
No, but you should have seen through the hypocrisy of Boko Haram, even from its origin. One of the founding members of Boko Haram was a cabinet member in the government of SARS, Senator Alimodu, this thing in Borno State. If he was not literate, he couldn't have been a member of the. He couldn't have been a member of the cabinet of the state. The guy who was extrajudicially killed. That guy who was extrajudicially killed was also literate. He was said to be a graduate. Indeed, the what's the name of this one with the 9 lives of a cat? They killed him. He resurrected the so-called Shekau guy. He said, at least I was watching. Was it an Al Jazeera documentary on him or a Sky documentary on him in England the other day? A couple of days ago, I was in England and I was watching the footage on him. And they went to his village, and he was said to have gone to one of the local schools and one Islamic school there, where they do, by this thing. So this guy.
But if that we're yet to really understand the concept behind the establishment of the sect and for what ideology they truly stand for.
Even our journalists have done rich works on these guys. The nature of the circumstance that precipitated the phenomenon that we now know as Boko Haram, the multiple splintering of groups, one group, leaving the other, intra-group squabbles and fights and whatever. I was reading one material on that in one of these features magazines.
Okay.
Nigerian, it must later be the Tell or the News magazine. And a very good journalistic work was done unraveling how the phenomenon came about us. That's why I keep saying that it's the failure of governance. The failure of governance. But you know what? It's not that we don't understand these guys. It's just that even for those of us who are still keeping within the boundary of the law, you get severally tempted to want to break the law because government fails us regularly. I was on a platform yesterday. I was at the University of Lagos Faculty of Engineering yesterday to talk to engineering students to encourage them into entrepreneurialism. And I was telling them, you see, especially in Africa, governments drop the ball big time. Some of us have just resolved in ourselves that governments will fail. But it is incumbent on us to go in the direction we want to go. The failure of governance may make the movement slow, but ultimately the resolve not to be tempted to be on the other side of the rule of law must first come from within you.
Many have said that if Nigeria could survive the civil war, the Biafra civil war...
We will survive this too. I've said it here once, that this too will pass.
That this too will pass.
Yeah.
But how do you see this pass? Because we have tried fire for fire. It seems not to have worked. Now we're trying ceasefire and negotiation. From what we are reading from the papers now, it is still not working. Because the Biafra was known for fire. It got to a time that one party felt overwhelmed and dropped.
Listen, I am still reading one of the many books I've read on the Nigerian Civil War, and I really want to tell you that the two warfares are different.
Okay.
Totally different. One was basically synchronous war, conventional warfare,
Okay.
orthodox warfare, an army facing an army, a territory, a defined territory facing another defined territory, and the winner was gradually inching his way
Okay.
to take the territory of the other conventional opponent. As we speak now, we are in a situation that is defined to be asynchronous. We have a conventional army, a conventional military fighting people who ordinarily, at the snap of the finger, if they drop their guns and run into some hamlets and this thing, could just
become normal civilians.
could just be misconstrued to be denizings of that neighborhood. Or and do you want to kill everybody to take one person you've been chasing? You understand what I'm saying? So this particular war is a bit more difficult, especially for an army that is relatively as organized as the Nigerian army, and that is not only accountable to the Nigerian people but also accountable to world opinion, and cannot just disrespect basic human rights. It's not easy to fight. I must be very honest with you. It's easy when you know somebody who you are in a boxing ring. You've got your gloves on, your opponent has got his gloves on, you are targeting each other, you are ducking, you are diving, and you are punching. If you want to rope a dope, you rope a dope. But you see, when you are facing, you have your own gloves on, and you don't see nobody. It's almost like fighting a spirit. But I know our boys and our military can still handle this if from the top we get to try.
You know, a major challenge that we seem to have in Nigeria is having these relationships exist between leadership and followership, having faith in our leaders as a people. How do you think all of the ceasefire deal and the developing stories and news we've heard recently has also impacted on the status quo?
You see, the question you are asking is a very, very important question. In the legendary Sun Tzu, in the book I quoted earlier on, The Art of War, says one of the 5 principal factors listed for any side to be a victorious, any army to be a victorious army, is the faith of the soldiers in the honesty, sincerity, and indeed the leadership.
Okay.
When you are a soldier in an army where you know that your leadership is failing you, sometimes courage too will fail you. Not because you are not courageous, not because you are a coward, but because you will think, you know what does it pay me to play the hero when even my memory and my kith and kin that I will leave behind will not be well taken care of. You can imagine when these boys are in so fighting the Boko Haram, and they are only getting less than 1,000 naira every day for feeding. And it's not as if you quickly go to one mama put there to go and buy.
Let me just hold you for a moment, Gwaloba. We have a caller now from Oshogbo, right? Good morning, Komolafe.
Good morning, sir.
Hello, good morning.
Yeah, this is Komolafe, Senator question from Oshogbo calling. Please, I would like to suggest something very important.
Please go ahead.
I would like you to try and see if we can talk to the government to partner with the Israeli government, because they have been on terrorism for some time. Some countries that are experts in that aspect. Probably maybe to collaborate with them and try and do one or two things with them and see if they can chip in some things on how to get these people. It will be more easier for us to catch them unaware.
Did I get that?
Yes, he suggested that maybe you people should get in touch with the government to partner with the Israelis because they have been contending with such asynchronous war circumstances
for a
for
while
so
now.
long, and
Okay.
they are masters at it. But you see, let me also tell him that the Nigerian government is in a special relationship not only with Israel, that voluntarily joined forces with the Nigerian to help the Nigerian people, and not only Israel, countries who have also enriched their military strategy.
Okay.
You know, on this nature of amorphous, you know, nebulous kind of amoeba kind of war. You know, formal shape. It takes any shape, like the UK, the United States of America. But the only problem we also have in relation to our relationship with these people is that their intelligence communities are wary of the integrity of our intelligence operatives to hold vital information, and they cannot sometimes, you know, in the intelligence world they say you can't trust the integrity of the intelligence of your partner. Because of the nature of our multi-tribal, multi-religious this thing, we have also discovered within ourselves. We have known within ourselves that some of our people are fifth columnists in our ranks. Indeed, the president of Nigeria once said that he had Boko Haram in his cabinet.
Does this explains why the...
And we know that in our military now, one of the reasons that was said to have given the who had that, you know, the vehicle of their GOC was that they felt that some of their officers were clandestinely communicating and exchanging information about their troop movement and strategy with the Boko Haram. So it's not as if we are not cooperating with the Israelis, but like I usually tell people, until you are well with yourself, sorry that I seem to want to be preaching at you, until one is well with himself, there is pretty little that your friends, your family can do for you.
You know, we heard stories about the failed arms deal in South Africa, the $9-something million.
That's another issue.
The federal government came up to say it's as a result of the United States not cooperating with Nigeria, so to speak. But just before you react to that, let's take this call from Imo State. Good morning, Abubakar. Hello, please.
You see, Nigeria is good. Abubakar from Imo State.
From Kano, rather. I beg your pardon. Please go ahead, Abubakar, with your contribution. Go ahead, please. Go ahead. I'm afraid we lost that. Please endeavor to turn down the volume of your TV set when you're contributing. Let's keep this conversation on telephone because there's a little bit of delay. This is satellite television. You know, does that also, this issue of faith and intelligence, is this also responsible for why the U.S. is refusing to sell arms for Nigeria? To Nigeria?
You see, in the world we live in now, the civil society movements of the world and other responsible voices of the world tend to call nations to order, especially nations like the United States of America, UK, France, Russia, and co. They call them to, they lambast them when they see military equipment made in their jurisdictions being used.
Just a minute, I think we have Abubakar back. Hello, Abubakar, are you there now? Are you there? Hello? Oh, I'm afraid we lost that.
It could be the telephone, it could be the service providers.
Very poor network. That's another challenge entirely. Please go ahead with the contribution.
So like I was saying, in the world we live in now, these nations too, although they want to make money, but they are also using other criteria. Yeah. They are using other criteria. I think your caller is online.
No, not yet.
Okay. they also use other criteria, to complement the chief criterion of making money before they sell you arms. The truth is that there are some materials out there that are seemingly stigmatizing about the conduct of some men and officers of the Nigerian Army. It will be doubly complicating and stigmatizing to these nations if their weaponry were to be seen being used by men and officers of Nigerian Army.
Let me hold you there. Hello, Abubakar. Are you there now?
Yes, I'm here.
Please go ahead with your contribution.
Yes, I'm here. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead with your contribution.
I think this our government doesn't want to end this Boko Haram. Yes, because for the other countries they have gathered that they want to help our soldiers to fight this Boko Haram.
Okay.
But after they have done the first meeting and the second meeting and the third meeting, our commander has come that after they have seen the meeting, our commander has said he has something to say. So we don't resolve the issue that they have agreed to with this Boko Haram. Until now, our president has told us that on Monday, last Monday, they are going to release this Chibok girl. So see, up to now, today we are up to today, there is no issue of releasing the game. And this Boko Haram, they are still operating anywhere they like. Anywhere they like, they are operating. And for our soldiers, there is no any command that we should go and fight the Boko Haram. We just sit down. So I think this issue of Boko Haram is totally our government, and they don't want to fight this Boko Haram because I know our soldiers that in 1 week they can finish all this kind of problems if they have been given the command.
Thank you very much for the contribution, Abubakar from Kano. You see, but apart from killing innocent Nigerians, thousands of them, it looks as if Boko Haram has also been able to turn the back of Nigerians against leadership, because the average reaction of every Nigerian is that, well, our leaders are not doing what they should do.
No, it's not as if it's the Boko Haram phenomenon that has turned Nigerians against the leadership. It is indeed the corporate failure of our leadership. Look, take your eyes away from Boko Haram. Earlier on, when Abubakar called and the line was cut in, I said it must be the service provider. You said that is another issue. My brother, that's another issue. Power outage, that's another issue. That's another issue. Roads. I was just told, you see, I was joking with one of your cameramen who told me that when next I'm coming here, I should not be taking the horrible route from Isheri Riverview Estate entrance, that I should be taking the direction of Channels TV. That's another issue. The corporate failure of governance will naturally, at the point of pressure, make us turn against those who govern us. And more so when you see imminent failure of governance, but you don't see a body movement. You don't see a leadership that that exudes the charisma of doing something. We know they are not God. We know they are not omnipotent. We know they are not omnipotent. And we know that resources are finite.
Okay.
But if we were to see resolve in somebody's body language, if we were to see determination, if we were to see a sense of direction, we will be better encouraged to say, you know what, this is our leader. And whatever you think...
In whom we are well pleased.
Yeah.
Let's take this call. I think Omolafe is calling back.
Me and you and I, we are not only to Baba Salah.
Hello?
Please go ahead, Komalafe, with your contribution.
Yeah. It's something I want to add to my earlier advice.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Please, I would like the government in each of the states where the insurgency are, let me say rampant, or what should I put it now? Please, I would like them to try and collaborate with some of these local security agents. The local security agents. You know, there are people without uniform. They can as well. They can only they are not only to deal with animals. They can as well deal with people like this. You know, they can even chip into them because they have the way of recruiting their own soldiers. So unknowingly, they will have recruited some of them, and this without another way, is another security defense. Well, join them and catch them unaware with this, let me say, innovative. You can just try and, find the means, after discovering the means in which they recruit their soldiers.
Okay, you know,
Thank you, Komalafe.
and I really want to really appreciate this caller because it's bringing some very vital issues into view in the nature of our discussion here. I would want to believe, if I understood him rightly, that he is making a submission that we should encourage vigilantism, which are not totally against in view of the Malay we're facing in the Northeast. But instead of vigilantism, I will say that one of the other aftermaths of our dystopic federalism, our disjointed Pangolo federalism, is what we are facing now. If we had had state police, majority of these guys emanated from homes and communities in Nigeria. If we had had state police, the structure of the state law enforcement agency would have helped to quickly deracinate the roots of these guys. You see, when we talk of state police, some people will be saying, they will use it against their opponent. The federal police, are they not using it against their opponents? The idea that your last caller brought on the table would have been institutionalized in an entity like state police. And I tend to tell people about the story of New York. In the 90s, in the early 90s, in the 80s and the early 90s, New York was the most crime-infested mega city on the face of the earth. In fact, some of us, whilst we were living in Europe, would rather go to some other US cities and not travel to New York. It was so crime-infested. But a police chief, Bill Bratton, was engaged for the New York police. I actually started initially from the New York transportation place. My brother, because he divided New York into precincts and he made the head of each precinct to be accountable for his precinct, and he would bring all the chiefs of New York police precincts to a room. When they are doing their meeting, you will give your account to the people on TV, and people will be using interactive technology to tell you, if you say there's no crime in motion, there is crime. Yes, you understand?
Let me just hold you there. We have another caller from Ukuku. Michael. Good morning, Ibrahim. Go ahead with your contribution, please. Hello, Ibrahim. Are you there? Are you there? All right, please try again and then endeavor to turn down the volume of your TV set while you do so. Let's just, because we're rounding up now, just at any moment from now, we'll just take a little, some couples of call and round up here. But there are also other issues. Of course, I salute your recommendation about the New York thing and all of that. This issue of the National Assembly, endorsing that Mr. President should go ahead to borrow $1 billion to fight terrorism. There are also conspiracy theories.
No, you see, don't let's go into conspiracy.
Let me just quickly chip this in, because it's about enlightening the public. It's about bringing in-depth knowledge into what is believed to be a public view. As regards the timing of this borrowing relative to the ceasefire deal that we are talking about.
And the fact that they may use it for election, have you?
Well, thank God you said that.
No,
I did not say that.
You said conspiracy because you've been chasing conspiracy rabbits all along. Now I'm not even sure, I'm not a conspiracy analyst. You know, but you see, jokes apart, now let's get serious. We are in a de facto state of war.
Okay.
And when you are in a state of war, and the men and officers of your armed services are complaining, and it's even obvious, not that they are only complaining, it's obvious that their equipment and their weapons are obsolete. What do? You have to rekit. The last serious-minded rekitting of the Nigerian armed services was done under Shagari. Shehu Shagari. Ololoni Shagari. Was done under Shagari, the last major rekitting of the Nigerian armed services. All the military heads of state we had after him. Indeed, under Babangida and Abacha, the military was strategically and deliberately hollowed out to be impotent, so that it will not, so that the military will not topple them. So we were lured into a battle, or we've been lured into a battle with an ill-equipped army. It is incumbent on us to at least use...
But you are saying categorically here that there's no cause for alarm given the corruption status of our country, Nigeria.
No, I'm not saying there's no cause for alarm given the corruption status.
Let's take this call from Good morning, Isaac. Oboya, welcome to Call Digest. Are you there?
This Isaac. I'm telling you, I want to treat him. Hello, what I really want to treat him.
Chip it in, please.
Security.
Okay.
In the government, except if they really want to come at Boko Haram, there's nothing there that cannot be solved. You should get real intelligence, intelligence unit to go into this information and get out to flush them out. But I know very well that the government, they are aware of these things. They are all just for their own political gain. Yes.
Thank you for your contribution. He made mention of sincerity there. We're discussing the corruption status of Nigeria and $1 billion. Can we go to sleep over that?
But you see, I socialize in a particular area of Lagos every evening or most evenings, and some of the guys there, these are successful middle class guys who are doing well in many respects. And some of them sometimes will say, corruption. And I would just look at them and say, are you guys serious? Who brought us, down this corruption alley this far? Number one. Number two is that, is it because of corruption now government will not function? We know that some of those monies will develop wings and fly into some directions of the world, maybe South Africa, maybe, that's in South Africa. That was a slip of gumption. But you see, we know that the totality of the money. I tell people that when I hear budgets of government across all strata of governance, local government, state government, some of the states where you people are celebrating some individuals, when I hear their budgets, I know that almost half of that budget is going to be filtering to the powers that be in the system.
Just a minute, Gola. Let's take this call from Abuja. Good morning, Mohammed.
Hello?
Please go ahead with the contribution, Mohammed.
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
Hello?
Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Hey, good morning, sir. Yeah, so what happened on the discussion, we are very happy for this topic, but what we are saying and pleading to the federal government and the Boko Haram veterans to share and seize the fire, because many people are losing their life and many people are losing their homes. Please and please let them discuss a very nice so that our country to come back like before. Look at in the east now, if you go to the site, you see a different something. Many people are living in their environment and many houses and other things. Please and please, the federal government will try and get everything into us. So that
Thank you very much, Mohammed, for your contribution. Regards to Mr. President in Abuja.
I think we should also be begging the Boko Haram ideologues, the heretics who are bastardizing the glorious faith of Allah, this thing be praised. They must also realize that what they are doing does not glorify Allah. It stigmatizes the God they claim to serve.
On the contrary, they believe that they will have more virgins in heaven when they do that.
Allah does not work that way. Allah is far sensible than for you to be stigmatizing His mighty name, and you will think you have a platform to go and be sleeping with 7 virgins somewhere. You will not make a jannah.
Let's take another caller from Abuja. Akin Osho, right? Good morning. Hello, are you there? Go ahead with the contribution, please. I'm afraid we lost that. Keep trying. We'd love to hear from you before we wrap up the show this Thursday.
So when we have platforms like this and we're enjoining the federal government or President Goodluck Jonathan and people in government to do something, we should also, because the Boko Haramites claim to be Nigerians. If they love their God first, if they love Allah first, and if they love this nation that they claim to be denizens of, and indeed if they love their communities in this area where life and commerce has been made to be stagnant, they should also drop their guns and come and let us jaw to correct our society. We are not saying it is El Dorado yet. We are not saying there are no rooms for improvement, but the methodology they are using is not the best methodology to effect the change they want to see, even to the glory of the name of the Allah they say they believe in.
Would you agree that religious bodies in Nigeria have done enough? Because just earlier in the week, WHO certified Nigeria officially to be Ebola-free, and we were talking about the factors that were responsible for that huge success. And many people talked about our ability to work together, irrespective of our political, religious, or ethnic divide. Would you say that fight against Boko Haram is enjoying such publicity and unity that Ebola enjoyed in Nigeria?
Fight against Boko Haram is enjoying more than necessary publicity. Let's be very honest ourselves. The unfortunate part of the fight against Boko Haram, my brother, is the partisan definition that is being brought into it. And I'm talking to you now as an ex-politician, even in one of the most developed democracies on the face of the earth. Once partisanship comes into anything, the degree to which you will attend to it and resolve it will be far more elongated than if you were to approach it with a bipartisan strategy or attitude. We could get to extirpate Ebola from our jurisdiction because of the bipartisan nature with which we approached the fight against Ebola. I was in London about 1.5 weeks ago. And, you know, I had about 2 television sets, you know, in my living room that I watch. And I thought one was on Al Jazeera, one was this thing. Nigeria was being commended for the magnificent way we eliminated and indeed extirpated Ebola from our jurisdiction. I moved to channels like TV5, French this thing. I moved to channel as far as the equivalent of, say, BBC in Israel. And Nigeria was getting commendations all along. But you know what? Let's look at it. We approached the fight against Ebola through a bipartisan strategy.
Please hold that thought, Gola. We have a viewer, a friend of the house, calling from Warri. Good morning, Eze. How are you today? Good morning. Are you there, Eze? I'm afraid we lost that. Keep trying. We'd love to hear from you before we go on the show. Let's just begin to put this into logical conclusion. Tuesday was supposed to be the deadline for the, the release of our much talked about over 200 girls kidnapped from Chibok, Borno State. Of course, the presidency came up on today on Punch. No date yet for Chibok's girls' release, and there's ongoing negotiation. Which way forward, really, for Nigeria at this very critical time of our national history?
That question is a very tricky question, but I will try my best possible as a non-politician to be as, and I may not quite earn the love of everybody who is watching because of whatever may be their
Just before you answer that question, because that will be your final comment on the show this morning, let's take our last caller, Kingsley from Lagos. Kingsley, are you there?
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead with your contribution, Kingsley.
Yeah. Good morning.
Morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Go ahead, please.
So I want to contribute on based on that the Boko Haram, those people that surrendered, they should get information from those Boko Haram members that surrendered arms. They should interview them and from this information needed to capture Boko Haram. And if there is any other help that we need to get people around the area that Boko Haram are threatening, they are the people that are to give us the information to tell them. You understand? They are the security. They are people like their government.
It's all right. Thank you very much for your contribution. You're going to be our last caller on the show today. We appreciate all our callers. Please, let's quickly do justice to this within 2 minutes.
Let me try and profile an answer to the tricky question you really asked me. How can we resolve this? And I will give you empirical evidence of how, or evidences of how this kind of phenomenon has been resolved in some similar, sociologically and politically similar jurisdictions. There was a time when Uganda was totally disintegrating because of activities of a rebel movement, the Lord's Resistance Army. Although in the instance of the Lord's Resistance Army, they bastardized and indeed were heretically interpreting the dictates of the Christian Bible. But you know what? When the president of Uganda set about his job and was building a viable economy, it was easy for people to want to join into the progress of the main society by not being encouraged to join the LRA. Let's go to Uganda. Let's just stay in Uganda. Let's go to Rwanda. You and I know the nature of what happened in Rwanda. you know the nature of the internecine wars that took place between the
Tutsi and the Hutus.
The Tutsis and the Tutsi and the Hutus. Now, as I'm talking to you now, Rwanda is a model case for development in the whole of Africa. And the more we are hearing about prosperity in Rwanda, and the infrastructure of governance is being seen to empower people to actualize their material aspiration, the more we are less and less and less of the news of rebel movement facing the government. Good luck, Ebele Jonathan, the President of the Federal Republic. Our president should please do more for those areas that there are no wars. Northwest, North Central, Southwest, South-South, Southeast. If people see development, they will run away from the area of war, and some of the people indeed being used as idle hands now. The devil, they say, has work for idle, for idle hands. So I can only encourage the government.
Nigeria is the largest economy in Africa, don't forget.
You may be large, but you may be gradually losing it because you are leading.
Well, Alba, thank you very much for your very, very interesting contribution on the show. We always appreciate you for coming all the time. And we hope that you find time to join us again.
You guys have turned this into a kind of Boko Haram thing. You just speak me for the...
It's all right. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you for your calls. We appreciate your calls all the way from across Nigeria. Thank you for your contribution on the show. Call Digest continues tomorrow, Friday. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. Stick around for the top of the hour news. Don't go away.
Nigerians continue to
The city of Lagos once again has all roots. Be the first to know from the north, south, east, west, and around Africa. We break the news.
one Nigeria.
Now you can catch all the actions live as the news breaks. We are Core TV News.
Welcome to Core TV.
24-hour news station.